Hello, all, and welcome to a new episode of The Deferrals. I'm your co-host, Matt Higgins, along with Matt Johnson. How you doing today, Matt?
You know, I'm having a better week than Rafi Devers, so it's a low bar to clear, but still cleared it.
Too soon, man, too soon. Just because he has as many hits as us two combined doesn't mean you have to put the man down.
Listen, I'm confident if you gave me a 100 at-bats in majors, I probably wouldn't get a hit. But I also don't think I'd strike out 15 times in my first 19 plate appearances.
I would put money that you would.
It's fair. You'd probably win that.
Money that you would. So on today's podcast of The Deferrals, we will be interviewing Tim Kelly, managing editor of OnPatterson.com, who covers the Philadelphia Phillies, obviously for some Phillies talk. On top of that, afterwards, we will get into the Torpedo back discussion. Is it good for the game? Is it bad for the game? Should they be banned? We will discuss. Also, we will have news from around the league on Jerks and Profar's 80-game suspension for PEDs. We will also talk about the Boston Red Sox extending Crochet and Carson Kelly, catcher for the Chicago Cubs, hitting for the cycle against the Athletics in their home of Sacramento in a minor league ballpark. And to close it all out, as always, we will do a fun Immaculate grid. We are recording this on April Fool's Day, so they are giving us a very fun grid to do today.
They saw how bad we were doing.
They really did, yeah. And they'll probably see how bad we're going to do again.
Yeah. They saw the first few episodes and decided, you know what, we need to really, really lower the bar. So, fun fact, today's Immaculate Grid, it's going to be hard for us to fill because there are like 23,000 different options because you basically just have to name a baseball player.
And
but we might find a way to ruin this. Just stay tuned.
I'm definitely going to get at least two wrong.
Correct. Well, our audience knows that.
And on that note, we are going to kick it off with our interview with Tim Kelly from OnPatterson.com. Welcome back to the Deferrals. I'm Matt Higgins, and joining us today is the managing editor of OnPatterson.com, who covers the Philadelphia Phillies. So obviously, we're going to get into some Phillies talk today. Tim Kelly, how you doing today, Tim?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I'm very excited to have you. Obviously, as you can tell by my John hat, I'm a huge Phillies fan. Actually was down in D.C. for Saturday and Sunday's games, and also was at the home opener yesterday as well.
Yeah, me too.
Now, first question for you. Obviously, Phillies are 3-1 to start out the season. The offense has come along good. They've scored 25 runs in their first 4 games, but surprisingly, 23 of those runs have come off relievers, while only 2 of those runs came off a starter, Jake Irvin, Saturday against the Nationals. Jesus Luzardo had a great first start for the Phillies with 11 punch-outs, only giving up those 2 runs. What have you seen from the Phillies these first 4 games of the season, and has anything stood out or surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the trend you pointed out is something a lot of people have talked about early on. It's a 4-game sample size, so I don't think it's a huge deal, but they have struggled to get to opposing starting pitchers. I think opening day, whether people want to hear it or not, shadows were a real factor at Nats Park. But at least the 2 other weekend games, I mean, Game 2 and Game 3, you probably would have liked a little bit more. But Game 4, German Marquez is someone that's been a good pitcher in the past, and maybe he's rediscovered it. The bottom line is that you need to score more runs against opposing starting pitchers. So that's real. I think Edmundo Sosa stood out yesterday. So they're 3-1 right now. They're in a good spot after 4 games, but obviously you have 2 more against the Rockies here, and then the Dodgers come into town, which is going to be one of the biggest tests of the season.
Oh yeah, and it's coming very early too, so they're going to need to step up for that. One of the hitters who actually started off good is Max Kepler, and his signing was a bit derided, including myself. Might have been the biggest fan of the signing at the time. I mean, he's another left-handed hitter, hit for a little power last season. He was injury riddled a bit, only 8 home runs last year with the Minnesota Twins, but he's got off to he had a really good spring training, get off to a hot start this year. He has 4 hits for extra bases, including a home run. What do you expect from Kepler this season?
Well, I think some of the concerns people had when they signed him were valid. He has had problems staying healthy the last 3 or 4 seasons, and he is another left-handed hitter adding to a left-handed lineup. But I think since arriving at spring training, he's looked excellent. Even prior to yesterday, where he hits a home run, has a really good game. He had been making hard contact even on times where it didn't necessarily translate to him getting on base. I think he's a guy moving from right field to left field, but that doesn't seem to have been much of a transition for him. So, so far, so good for Max Kepler. Again, it's going to come down to staying healthy. And do you have a lineup that is too left-handed at the end of the day? We'll see.
And speaking of staying healthy, obviously there's a little bit of concern with the Phillies rotation right now. Ranger Suarez is on the IL with another back ailment. Just like last season, he missed about a month of the season with a back injury, but he says it's not as bad as it was last year. Taijuan Walker is going to be starting in a couple of days for Thursday afternoon. He had a couple of rough outings his last 2 starts in spring training, and unfortunately got booed by the fans coming out on the field yesterday. So I guess to you, like, how concerning is Rangers' back injury, and when is his updated timetable to return?
Well, I would say it might not be as bad of an injury as last year, but last year he was already built up at the time that he had the injury. In this case, he's got to get healthy and then build back up. So I don't think you're going to see him in April necessarily. That would be my guess, at least not at the major league level, because he's going to have to build up. I think you're talking about probably multiple rehab starts and or like simulated games before he's back with the team. I think it's concerning from a long-term sense, and it's one of the reasons why the Phillies and other teams should have some questions about potentially signing him long-term, because he's someone that has had back injuries in 3 out of the last 4 years that have put him on the IL. So I think it is concerning in that sense, and he'll probably be good when he comes back, whether he spends the whole season in the rotation, starts in the rotation, ends up in the bullpen, some combination. He has been a really good pitcher for the Phillies now for 4 or 5 seasons, but the health stuff is unquestionably a concern.
Yeah. And staying on the health stuff, obviously, Uber prospect Andrew Painter is expected to return to the mound for the Phillies this summer. What's like the latest on the role he's going to play for the Phillies? Obviously, they want him to start out, but they're going to still be limiting his innings.
Yeah, no, they. I think the timeline of June to August at some point for him to make his MLB debut. I think that the time I've always kind of guessed is around 4th of July, but they've said at some point in the summer. He actually threw a bullpen today, or was scheduled to throw a bullpen today, and then was going to pitch in. I believe a live BP or simulate. I don't quote me on that. It was either live BP or simulated on Friday. So he is progressing, but they're being careful. He pitched in the fall league last year, so season went a little later than it normally would for a minor leaguer because he didn't actually pitch in the season. So it kind of backed him up in the offseason. But I think this makes sense that they have him where he's going to be available in September and potentially October, whether that's as a starter. It's certainly going to be as a starter when he comes up, but if there's some point late in the season where they move him to the bullpen in some form, that wouldn't shock me either.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if the Phillies might use him kind of like how the Rays use David Price in the bullpen, and even like the Dodgers back in like 2008 used Clayton Kershaw coming out of the pen.
Yeah, no, and I've thought of the David Price comp as well. Like that could be a huge weapon. You saw last year when you try to trade for a reliever at the middle of the season, Carlos Estevez was fine, but you had to give up a pretty decent package of prospects, and you got a guy that was probably your 4th best reliever down the stretch of the season. So maybe instead having at least one guy, if not 2 guys out of your starting rotation that you can shift to the bullpen. And my guess would be those 2 guys. One would definitely be Ranger Suarez in my mind, and then potentially Painter, that you could shift some of those guys to the bullpen. Maybe you save yourself from having to make a trade that costs a lot and doesn't assure a huge return in the bullpen by just taking some of the guys you currently have in the rotation and putting them into that role. We've seen Ranger Suarez pitch out of that role successfully already.
Yeah, it would definitely lengthen the bullpen in October as well. You got Alvarado, you got Strahm, you got Orion Kirkring. Jordan Romano looked a little shaky his first couple games with the Phillies. I mean, gave up a hit yesterday, but settled down and was able to get out of the inning unscathed.
Yeah, no, I think he was a little overamped in the first game, but he bounced back yesterday. I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah. Now, kind of looking forward to after the season. Obviously, this might be like the last year this core is together. We got Kyle Schwarber coming up on free agency, as well as JT Realmuto. Both have said they want to stay in Philly. Do you know where extension talks lie with these two players? And do you think the Phillies will be able to bring back both of them or just one of them?
I don't know where they lie currently. I think if the Phillies want, they certainly can bring back pretty much anyone they want. They've shown they can spend with pretty much any team in the league. It's just going to come down to how many guys do you want to have signed into your mid to late 30s. It's a slippery slope there. The thing is, though, I don't know who you're going to find to catch next season that's going to be a better option than JT Realmuto. Even if he's not at his peak anymore, I don't know who you're going to find that's going to be better than him. And Kyle Schwarber, as much as we think of DH as being replaceable, I don't think anything about what he's done in 4 years with the Phillies is necessarily like, yeah, you can just kind of churn the position and bring in the next guy. Unless like you're signing Kyle Tucker and moving Castellanos to DH or something like that. I don't know how you replace what Kyle Schwarber has brought to you both on and off the field.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he's become a leader of that clubhouse the last 4 seasons. I think, and he's also taken a lot of the pressure off, somebody like Bryce Harper, who doesn't need to be looking at as the carry the team as a leader. Like he could just do his thing offensively.
Yeah, no, I think he's taken pressure off him both in terms of that and in terms of hitting home runs and doing imagine where the Phillies are the last 4 years without Kyle Schwarber. It's like a funny thing to go back and imagine if they'd signed Starling Marte instead of Kyle Schwarber at that point.
Oh, man.
Where they may be. And Marte had a really good first year with the Mets, but he's older. He didn't play center field beyond like that first season. So, and actually, even the first season, he didn't play center field because Nimmo was there. But had he signed with the Phillies, I think he would have been playing center field. And I don't think it would have lasted particularly long. Certainly, you wouldn't have got the power output as Kyle Schwarber. So the Schwarber signing has been one of the best in the history of the Phillies.
Yeah, and only 4 years, $79 million. I mean, it looks so cheap right now, with what he's brought to the table. Now, speaking of center field, obviously the Phillies thought they had their future center fielder trading for him and Brandon Marsh back in the 2022 season, giving up catching prospect at the time, Logan O'Hoppe. Being around the Phillies like you have and covering the Phillies, have you ever gotten a sense from the front office that there might be a tad bit of buyer's remorse having Realmuto's free agency coming up this year and Brandon Marsh not really becoming that everyday player so far that they thought he would be?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's a debate to be had about who won that trade, who will ultimately win that trade. Logan O'Hoppe hasn't, he's had some nice moments, but he hasn't necessarily become like an all-star level player yet. Brandon Marsh, I think, brought a presence to the Phillies. He is someone that is uber positive and someone that I think kind of added like a bit of in 2022, like another vibes guy, for lack of a better phrase. And he's continued to be that since then. He's a great teammate. He's even when like someone like Johan Rojas is kind of taken at bats away from him, he's been the biggest supporter of that guy. And Brandon Marsh has hit right-handed pitching well. I do think he strikes out too much for this team at times because he's not like really a power hitter on top of that. And you have other guys that are more power-oriented that are going to strike out. But no, I mean, I think Brandon Marsh is a solid major league player, and they've gotten some good years out of him now. Even if he isn't developed, even if the hitting against lefties doesn't pan out this season, there's still a lot of value in a guy that's a really good defensive left fielder, capable in center field, and is going to hit well against righties.
And speaking of kind of about this car, kind of like with obviously like this team, kind of like this team's being its like last hurrah together. Do you think Dave Dombrowski will be more aggressive at this year's trade deadline?
Well, there's two sides to that. Yeah, you could try to do that and get in with this team and make one last push. But the other side of that is next year you're going to want some of those guys potentially in the next couple of years that you would have to be trading. So I think at this point, like Aiden Miller, I would be pretty surprised if they trade him. They're not trading Andrew Painter. Who knows with Justin Crawford? Probably not, but I guess I wouldn't say 0% chance. But I don't know. I mean, I think they've been pretty protective of the farm system and kind of balancing the present with the future. And I think that makes sense because you can start to see like an expiration date with this current core, and you don't want to go into a stretch like you did after 2011 where you missed the playoffs for 10 seasons afterwards. You want to be able to sustain that success, and you should be able to sustain that success with the resources that the Phillies have.
If you had like kind of like your best guess, who do you think will not be part of this Phillies team next season? Obviously, it's a long ways away.
Yeah, I'm not even entirely sure on that, but I think JT Realmuto will be here, and I think there's a real chance that Realmuto and Realmuto and Schwarber are both here next season. And what they do around that, I'm not entirely sure, but I find it hard to imagine those two not in the lineup next season.
How about Alec Boehm?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big year for Alec Boehm. I don't think it's like a secret that they considered trade offers for him this past offseason. So we'll see how this year plays out. 4 games in, I don't know that we have like a big takeaway, but it's a big year for him, no doubt.
Yeah, it definitely is. And we'll get you out on here with this question, Tim. The Phillies have just put a refrigerator in the dugout. They might be the first team in baseball to do so. Which player is going to be the first one to take a bat to it?
I don't know who's going to be the first one. I feel like that would be off limits. Like you make some people in high places mad. I don't know that there would be a bat to it, but I'm interested to see the test of does a foul ball. Apparently, it's like a type of glass that is supposed to be able to withstand being hit by a foul ball.
Oh, okay.
We'll see if that's actually the case. Like if I guess it would probably be more likely to be a right-handed hitter hits it into that because the dugout's across the first baseline. So, yeah, I mean, it would have to be hit really hard and get by whoever's sitting in that area of the dugout. But I would imagine at some point it's going to be tested, whether it's in a game or sometime in batting practice or whatever.
So you're saying nobody's going to take a bat to it personally? Nobody's going to come up there slugging away?
No, I mean,
they
may hit other parts of the dugout. I feel like that part of the dugout is probably not one that it would be wise to take a bat to.
Is there anything else you would like to add, Tim?
No, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on. Is there anywhere you can tell our viewers to find your work?
Yeah, on Pattison.com. I write on Bleacher Report on their MLB as well, and on all social channels, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Facebook, at Tim Kelly Sports.
And thanks again to Tim Kelly from onpattison.com to give us some Phillies talk. Now, we are going to move on to the discussion of torpedo bats. They came to the forefront of the American discussion across the nation after the Yankees hit 15 home runs while sweeping the Milwaukee Brewers over the weekend. Matt, what are your thoughts on these new torpedo bats?
My thoughts are this is one of the most overhyped and overrated baseball stories I can remember in a long time. I mean, like it was. I remember waking up, I saw the first story with the torpedo bats. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I was like, oh, you talk about how the Yankees, were spearheading this and, it was this big innovation. And that was really cool. And like, hey, you mentioned 15 home runs. It was tying the major league record for the first few games of the season. That's all amazing. And then you really sit back and think about it. Okay, the Yankees were playing in the hitter's haven that is Yankee Stadium with all those short porches.
Mm-hmm.
It was a warmer spring day than usual. Nestor Cortez, they know like the back of their own hands. The Yankees obviously have power hitters, so maybe did the bat help a little? Sure, but I mean, it feels like the story got way out of control just because it was the Yankees. Like, if this is the Kansas City Royals, is it a nice story? Sure, it's a nice story that, gets some attention. Maybe there's a few articles on it, The Athletic. But I mean, this is dominating ESPN. This is like making national news right now. And it's absurd because, like, if you also go to MLB.com had a story where if they were talking to baseball executives about this, and they said this has been a thing for over a year. They had
Yeah.
their guys testing it out in spring training, and a lot of the guys tried it out and said, "You know what? I don't really like this. It's just not working for me." I mean, even some Phillies guys come out. Alec Baum has come out and said, like he was aware of it, and has to do with the pitching lab where, they have to connect you up to a bunch of things, and they find out what's the right thing for you. But as you said, like if you get jammed a lot, maybe, but if you're also getting jammed a lot, that kind of speaks to you as a hitter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I get it. It's a big story because it happened to the Yankees, and Ellie De La Cruz just had a 2-home-run game with 7 RBIs. But this feels like such an overreaction to a small thing that a month from now, I don't think anyone's going to remember the torpedo bats. But that's just me. Maybe I'm a cynical, quote unquote, old man who is, just wants the baseball to go back to how it was.
Yeah, it's a very small sample size right now, like you were saying. It's not like the Brewers bullpen is the same as it has been previously. They just got rocked. A lot of their normal pitchers are on the IL right now. So you're facing essentially like minor league pitchers, the Yankees hitters were over the weekend.
And to that point, real quickly, the Brewers allowed 47 runs in their first 4 games, tying the 1954 Cardinals for the most runs given up through 4 games to open the season in the modern era. So, like, yeah. Anyway, to your point, it's the Brewers.
Yeah, it's the Brewers. It looks like, it's going to be a struggle for them this season. Like I said, it's a very small sample size. We're only 5 games into the season at this point. There's not a lot of data on it. A month from now, 2 months from now, we can see how much these torpedo bats truly help develop a player. But, until then, it's a fun little story that's kind of making the rounds nationally right now.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, because again, baseball opinions have been divided on it. Some execs have said that it is what it is. Others have said that they think Major League Baseball might eventually step in and ban this. Do you think Major League Baseball needs to get involved whatsoever?
No, not at all.
No. Okay.
No. I think this is a great invention for baseball, honestly. I mean, you have pitchers that are developing new pitches like the sweeper that are throwing consistently in triple digits. Offense has taken a step back over these last few years. And if you want to get offense back in the baseball, I think this is a great first step with these torpedo bats and to see how well they do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of surprising that it's actually taken this long for, an invention like this to actually happen. And another funny part is the person who invented this previously worked for the Yankees and now works for the Marlins. Why did the Marlins not have these bats to begin with? Why aren't every Marlins hitter using these bats?
Well, let's be honest. If the Marlins had these bats, they probably would have traded them for prospects or cash considerations. But yeah, to your point, I mean, pitching labs, you see guys now spending months there just to get their velocity up, just doing whatever they can to get that extra edge. Pitchers have had the advantage for a while. That's why you're seeing batting averages go down. That's why you're seeing so many the 3 outcome hitters that rise. But it's, again, if hitters are finally having even a slight advantage, baseball kind of needs that.
Yep.
And so, yeah, first of all, I don't think baseball should step in, and I can't imagine MLB wants to step in right now because no press is bad press, and they need this press, and they need the runs.
Exactly. Don't ban the torpedo bats. Like, don't ban the tush push. Leave it in. Leave it in. All right. I'm off my pedestal now.
Good.
Let's move on to news from around the league, and we will start with the 0-5 Atlanta Braves. Once again, we are recording this on a Tuesday, so things could obviously change when this comes out on Wednesday. Well, right now, they are 0-5. They got swept in a 4-game series by the San Diego Padres. They lost Monday night to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Obviously, the schedule makers that are doing the Braves no favors beginning of the season, starting out with a 7-game West Coast trip. On top of that, they just lost their $42 million outfielder, Jurickson Profar, suspended for 80 games after testing positive for PEDs. And according to John Heyman, it was the same PED that Manny Ramirez used a couple of decades ago. This is nuts. And on top of that, the Braves just lost their all-star pitcher from last year, Reynaldo Lopez, to the 15-day IL. And on top of that, they just DFA'd Jesse Chavez. Matt, what in the world are the Braves going to do, and how can they come back from this?
Yeah, like when the season started, like again, there were injuries the Braves knew they were going to have coming into the year. Strider's going to be out for a while. Acuna's going to be out for a while. They knew this. But then Sean Murphy gets hurt. It was like, that's a little bit of a blow. They're like, all right, so we've been without him before. Obviously, we don't have Travis d'Arnaud. That kind of hurts us a little bit more now. We don't have that same catching depth. But you know what? We've overcome this in the past. And then, the Braves learned, hey, that all-star outfielder you signed, the guy who had a 135 OPS plus last year, he's going for 80 games. And not only that, if you happen to overcome all of this and you make the playoffs, he's not eligible for the playoffs either.
Yeah.
So, kind of went from bad to worse for them. And, I mean, again, it feels like there's even worse news because, again, it was just reported recently that Acuna hasn't been cleared to do cutting drills yet, so he's not close. So everything seems to be going wrong. They're 0-5, and maybe there's a turnaround, but it spells doom for a team that it's really felt like ownership has been emphasizing keeping payroll at a certain limit. So it's not like a big move is going to come. So, I would be very worried if you're Atlanta. But I will say this. One interesting discussion that I don't know how baseball deals with this, is if you're Jurickson Profar, and these numbers, people go back to steroid use or did him testing positive having to do with the season last year. I'm just going to present the numbers. Profar's career from 2012 to 2023, he had a 238, 322, 383 slash line with a 706 OPS and a 92 OPS plus. Not awful, but below
average. Yeah.
Profar in 2024, 280, 380, 459 with an 839 OPS and a 135 OPS plus, earning an All-Star award, or earning an All-Star, it just came out of nowhere. And obviously he was able to turn this into a big lucrative deal. And now here's the issue. Because if you're Profar, it was obviously worth it. You turn, if there were allegedly steroids involved, he got a $42 million deal out of this just for one great season of play. And he'll lose some of the money this year because Atlanta is not on the hook for money owed during his suspension. But one thing with his contract, kind of interesting, not saying this was intentional, but his lowest salary is this season. It accelerates the following year and the year after. So, and again, one thing that baseball, again, going to back my point, baseball kind of has to think about is if these steroids were able to help, if they, enhance his performance significantly, if it's able to turn into, this lucrative $42 million contract, that's a worthwhile, if you're a player, if you're a below average player, in a contract, heading into a contract year or something. I mean, sure, maybe you get popped for 80 games, 2 years from now, but if you can make it turn one season of great play, aided by performance enhancing drugs, into a lucrative contract where, hey, you made $10 million in your career lifetime, you take out, agent fees and taxes and whatnot, that's a lot less. Obviously, it's still a lot, but it's not, multi-generation. But, hey, maybe a little PEDs help you have that one big season, and you can get that $40 million contract. That's a sticky predicament for baseball because I don't, maybe they can try and put in clauses, but the Major League Baseball Players Association is probably the strongest union in all of sports. So I don't know what baseball does there because it's there's a clear incentive to basically cheat the game if you want to. As long as you're able to get away for a while, there's plenty of money in it. So I don't know what baseball does there, but it's kind of the underrated story of this suspension to me.
Yeah, just to clear up anything, this is the first time Profar has ever tested positive for PEDs. He did not test positive last year for PEDs during his All-Star season. So this is the very first time he got popped. But apparently from previous reports that have come out, there were kind of whispers in the clubhouse regarding Profar last year. But we'll have to see, wait to see how it plays out. Obviously, like if he tanks over the last couple of years of his contract, man, oh man. I mean, that's just a brutal loss for the Braves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you just flushed $42 million down the toilet if Profar can't perform up to his All-Star level as he did in 2024.
Yeah.
And now, and plus now they're more behind the eight ball because, like as you mentioned before, Acuna is not coming back until probably like late May now, at the earliest. And now you're out. You don't have your other All-Star outfielder that you were counting on with Acuna missing the first 2 months of the season.
It's not a great place to be for Atlanta, and I mean their farm system isn't what it used to be either. So it's a sticky wicket. It's not a great spot.
Sticky wicket, I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now let's move on to the Boston Red Sox, who just extended Garrett Crochet 6 years, $170 million. The deal starting in 2026 and has an opt-out after the 2030 season, and it's also the most money guaranteed for a player with 4+ years of service time. What did you think about the Red Sox extending Crochet, and was it the right move?
I was surprised because in the weeks leading up to this, we had stories about this on Sportsnaut.com. We like to follow on these extensions, how things are going with teams. But the talks were that Boston and Crochet were not close whatsoever. Talks were reportedly a non-starter. Things were not going well. Then a few days later, here's this record-setting contract. So, I mean, it's kind of surprising, but it really justifies the cost that they paid even more because, again, all these big trades, you have to get these big prospects, and that's kind of what Cubs are dealing with right now with Kyle Tucker, and there's not an extension in the future. And Boston, they already had the 2 years of contract control, so maybe that helped because, Crochet was like, well, if I have to wait 2 years, I already had Tommy John surgery already. Maybe I should get the deal now, but this is a win-win for both sides. To me, Boston gets a potential ace locked up, and realistically, given where, revenues are going for baseball, he probably will opt out when he's at his age 31 season in 2030.
Mm-hmm.
And so for Boston, gets the short-term deal that its ownership prefers. Crochet gets paid. Everyone's happy, and doesn't seem like Boston's done either. Christian Campbell's getting a contract extension here pretty soon.
Yeah, and they still got 2 more kids coming up in the pipeline, in Marcelo Mayer and Roman Anthony. And if they project to be as good as many think they are, that's probably 2 more extensions coming down the pike as well for them. Yeah, and it also shows Red Sox fans who have, let's face it, have dealt with like 3 straight tumultuous seasons that, ownership wants to put a winner back on the field after the disastrous Mookie Betts trade.
Yep.
They want to prove to fans like, hey, we want to win again. We want to bring that World Series trophy back to Boston. And that first big step was trading for Garrett Crochet and now extending him. And now you have your ace for the next 4 years, obviously barring any injury. They're building up the rotation. They're building up their lineup. They improved their bullpen. The Red Sox showed that they're ready to make a run finally for the first time in several seasons.
It's amazing what happens when MLB team ownership is willing to spend money.
Yeah, exactly.
What a novel concept.
Yeah. Now, if others actually believe in that as well, cough, cough, Pirates, Marlins.
I would even say the Cubs. Cubs
White
don't
Sox.
spend enough.
Now, speaking of the Cubs, Carson Kelly the catcher, hit for the cycle last night.
In Sacramento.
In Sacramento, of all places, against the Athletics. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Boog Giambi, the Cubs play-by-play announcer, had a fantastic call in it. Matt, what are your thoughts about Carson Kelly making history in Sacramento?
Well, first, I do like the fact that it happened in my hometown. It's nice. I never expected to
warms the heart.
Yes, still have that heart beating for the 916. But I never imagined that I had to read that a Major League Baseball player hit for the cycle in Sacramento. But that's nice. And again, that was a big win for the Cubs. They just demolished the A's, just clobbered 18-3. And it was the first, which is kind of wild given the Cubs' history. It was the first cycle for the Chicago Cubs in 32 years. So, it's kind of nice to see that history made. And it wasn't a guy like Tucker. It wasn't Suzuki. It was Carson Kelly. So, I don't know, little things like that I get enjoyment out of. So I enjoyed it. I was happy.
It's what makes this game fun.
It does. I enjoy it more than the torpedo bats.
That's why we love the game. And now we move on to our favorite segment of the week,
which shows our love for the game.
The Immaculate Grid, which I will put on the screen right now.
First, I do want to say thank you to Immaculate Grid and Baseball for finally creating a game that will actually hopefully be able to win, because folks, if you're listening, so as you know, it's 9 boxes and you have to line up. They have to play for this team and that team, or they have to be at this team and an all-star, or hit 300 in the season. Today, because as again, we're recording on April 1st, so the boxes are played in the major leagues. It can just be one game. Now, it has to be an actual MLB game, so we can't, pull Rowan Gardner. We can't go with, any fictional characters, but no Bugs Bunny here. But I think even
Billy Crystal played for the Yankees in a spring training game.
Well, yeah, but Will Ferrell doesn't count either.
Will Ferrell did for nine games of spring training. I'm putting down Will Ferrell and Bill Crystal. See what happens.
We would be the one person who can't get it who failed this game. All right, sir, I'll let you lead off. Can you name a Major League Baseball player?
I am. And you know what I'm going with? Pinky Higgins. No relation.
All right.
Look at that. 0.010%.
No. I'm going to give you 3 because, I want to name some.
You're going to give me 3?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to go with my Gigantes. We're going to start with Hector Sanchez.
Hector
Sanchez. Hector
Sanchez. Ooh.
And we're going to go with another pair of no-hitters. Jonathan Sanchez, who had some fun moments.
0.006%.
Rounding out my list of no-hitters, Chris Heston. So I gave you guys a little theme there.
Hey, tied with my Pinky Higgins.
There we go. All right, what's your next pick?
My next pick. One of the greatest Baltimore Oriole pitchers of all time.
Chris Davis?
Bauer. 0.006%. Let's go.
Make another one.
Let's go. All right. I'm going Tony Longmire. Woo-hoo-hoo.
All right. I've got another one for you. We're going to go, because sometimes just a random name pops into your head. And in this case, it was Rex Brothers. I don't know why he popped into my head, but he did.
Rex Brothers. 0.01%. What am I going to do?
You should go someone off the wall like Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, I should. I wonder how much Shohei Ohtani will actually have. Let's see. Oh, I know. Darnell Sweeney. 0.010%. So much. All right, you want to get the last one, MJ?
We will go with he was a Giants prospect, but Thomas Neal.
Thomas Neal. Whoop.
Immaculate doesn't want to give us a score.
Why is not giving us a score?
There we go.
Score of 0.
We got a 0.
There we go.
I have to say, this feels like the perfect way to retire Immaculate Grid. We can never beat this.
No, we can't beat this. People, fans of the Deferrals, this will be our last Immaculate Grid we ever did.
We're going out on top.
We are literally going out on top with a rarity score of 0. We can't beat this at all.
We can't. We won the World Series. We have to retire now.
Yeah, that's it. That's all for Immaculate Grid, people. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoyed our latest The Deferrals podcast. As the kids say, make sure to smash those like, subscribe, and notification buttons. And also check out our baseball content on Sportsnaut.com, as well as our other pieces and books.
Again, I just want to say, everyone, thank you for listening. Again, please comment, subscribe. Those YouTube comments, we interact with you. We respond to all of them, so make sure you do that.
I don't. MJ does. I can't handle it.
Oh, that's fair. I don't interact with you that often either, so that's fine. And again, I want to say a special thank you to Tim Kelly for coming on and talking to the Phillies with us today. Much appreciated. And yeah, we'll have more interviews, more baseball talks to come in the future, which, again, less Immaculate Grid, but more baseball talks. It's going to be a fun time.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.